Britney Spears is facing some legal trouble. The pop superstar was arrested in California just after 9 p.m. local time on the evening of March 4th, according to police.
She was dancing on Instagram just hours before everything fell apart. No warning. No signs, at least not the ones most people were paying attention to. Just another Wednesday night post from Britney Spears, moving alone in her living room like she always does. And then somewhere between that video and midnight, everything changed at BY Thursday morning. The world woke up to 3 words that nobody wanted to see: Britney Spears arrested. Wednesday night, around 9:30 p.m. in Ventura County, California. The California Highway Patrol pulled over a black BMW. Behind the wheel was one of the most famous women on the planet, alone, at night, on a highway in the dark. She was handcuffed on the spot, driven to a hospital for a blood draw, then booked into county jail at 3 a.m. before quietly being released just a few hours later. And by the time most of her 44 million Instagram followers went to check on her, her account was gone, completely wiped. Like she was never there. No post. No explanation. Just silence. Here's the thing though. If you've been paying close attention over the last few years, this moment didn't come out of nowhere. The signs were there. The warnings were there. And a lot of people either missed them, ignored them, or simply looked away. So today, we're not just talking about one bad night. We're talking about everything that led up to it, and what it might mean for what comes next. Now let's talk about what actually happened that night, because the details mattered. It was 9:30 p.m. when the California Highway Patrol pulled Britney over in Westlake Village, a quiet, upscale neighborhood in Ventura County, just a short drive from her own home. This wasn't some late-night highway in the middle of nowhere. This was practically her backyard. What exactly triggered the stop hasn't been fully confirmed yet. But what we do know is that once officers approached the vehicle, things escalated fast. Britney wasn't just given a warning and sent home. She was handcuffed, right there on the side of the road. And for someone who has spent years fighting to prove she could live her life on her own terms, that image is devastating. From there, she was transported to a local hospital. Not a jail, not a holding cell, a hospital first. That detail matters, because it tells you the officers suspected something beyond just alcohol. A blood draw was ordered, which means toxicology results are still pending. Right now, nobody outside of law enforcement knows exactly what was in her system that night. That we're still waiting on those numbers. After the hospital, she was booked into Ventura County Jail at 3 a.m. Processed, fingerprinted, the whole thing. And then, just a few hours later, around 6 a.m., she was released. No bail hearing. No dramatic courtroom moment. She just walked out into the early morning light, alone, and disappeared. That a court date has been set for May 4th. But between now and then, a lot can happen. And the first sign that something was seriously wrong didn't come from law enforcement. It came from her own team, in a statement so brutally honest, it stopped people cold. When a celebrity gets arrested, their team usually goes into full damage control mode. Carefully worded statements. Vague apologies. The classic "we respect the legal process" non-answer designed to say everything while revealing nothing. That's not what happened here. Britney's representative released a statement, and it was startling. Not because of what it did, but because of how much it admitted. Word for word, it called the incident completely inexcusable. Not unfortunate. Not a misunderstanding. Inexcusable. That's a remarkably harsh word for a team that's supposed to be protecting their client's image. But it didn't stop there. The statement went on to say that this arrest could hopefully be the first step in long overdue change that needs to occur in Britney's life. Read that again slowly. Long overdue change. Her own team, the people closest to her professionally, publicly admitting that something has been broken for a while now. That this wasn't a one-off mistake. That there's a pattern they've been watching and apparently waiting on. And then came the part about her sons, Sean Preston, now 20, and Jaden, 19, the 2 boys she fought so hard to stay connected to during and after the conservatorship, are reportedly being brought in. The statement confirmed they would be spending time with her, and that her loved ones are coming to build what they called an overdue needed plan to set her up for success and well-being. An overdue plan. In 2026. 5 years after the world celebrated her freedom, that's the part that quietly breaks your heart. Because it raises a question nobody, inner circle seems to have a clean answer to. If the people around her knew change was long overdue, why did it take a pair of handcuffs on the side of a highway to finally trigger it? And here's what makes it even harder to sit with. This wasn't the first warning sign. Not even close. Because if you go back and look at the last few years of Britney's life with honest eyes, the picture that emerges isn't pretty. The arrest didn't come out of a clear blue sky. There was a trail, and it stretched back further than most people want to admit. Let's start with October 2025. Just a few months ago, Britney was filmed leaving a restaurant in Thousand Oaks, not far from where she was arrested. And the footage was alarming. Her car was visibly swerving, drifting between lanes. The kind of driving that makes other drivers on the road slow down and pull away. That video circulated online for days. People talked about it. And then, like so many other Britney moments, the conversation quietly faded out. But go back even further, to 2023, and the warning signs were just as loud. Videos emerged of Britney dancing alone in her home, holding what appeared to be knives. Her movements were erratic. Her captions were cryptic. Fans were scared enough that all fair check was called to her address. Officers showed up. She was deemed okay. The world moved on. But those who were paying close attention didn't forget. Then there were the bandaged hands. Photos surfacing online showing visible injuries with zero explanation. Posts that went up and came down within hours. Captions that read more like scattered thoughts than social media updates. Fragmented, emotional, sometimes barely coherent. Each one dismissed individually as just Britney being Britney. But stack them all together, and the pattern is impossible to ignore. And then there's the Instagram behavior itself. For years, her account has been the one place she communicated directly with the world. Dancing videos at all hours of the night. Long emotional captions. Posts that disappeared as fast as they appeared. It became normal to her fans, expected even. But normalizing erratic behavior doesn't make it less erratic. It just makes it easier to overlook. The conservatorship ended in November 2021. And in the years that followed, instead of stability, what the public witnessed was a woman slowly unraveling in real time, with millions of people watching, commenting, and scrolling past. Which brings us to the one place she always returned to. The one thing that seemed to be her anchor. And the fact that it's now gone too. For better or worse, Britney Spears' Instagram was her voice, not a publicist's voice. Not a manager's carefully crafted statement. Hers. Raw, unfiltered, and completely unpredictable. In a world where most celebrities communicate through polished press releases and choreographed red carpet appearances, Britney's Instagram was the one place you could see the real her, or at least the version of herself she chose to share at 2 a.m. when nobody told her not to. She danced when she was happy. She wrote long, emotional captions when something was hurting her. She posted throwback photos with captions that read like diary entries. And her 44 million followers showed up every single time, not just for the entertainment, but because for a lot of them, watching Britney navigate her freedom felt deeply personal. They'd fought for her. They cared about what happened to her. Her last post before the arrest was exactly that, a solo dance video. Just Britney, moving alone in her living room, the way she always did. Nothing about it screamed crisis. Nothing about it suggested that within hours, she'd be in handcuffs on the side of a California highway. And then by morning, the account was gone, not deactivated temporarily. Not taking a break. Gone. 44 million followers, years off posts, every dance video, every cryptic caption, every raw, emotional moment she'd ever shared. Wiped clean overnight. Fans woke up when to check on her the way they always do after big news breaks, and found nothing but a blank page where she used to be. For a woman whose entire connection to the outside world lived on that app, that silence is deafening. And it forces you to look at the bigger picture. Because the Instagram disappearing isn't just about one social media account. It's the latest chapter in a much longer story of a career, a life, and a sense of self that has been quietly crumbling for years. Long before Wednesday night, long before Ventura County, the question was never really if something like this would happen. Looking back now, the harder question is why it took this long for anyone to step in. November 2021. The conservatorship ends. The judge signs the order. And the entire world exhales that IT was supposed to be the beginning. The moment Britney Spears finally got her life back after 13 years of having virtually every decision made for her. Her money, her career, her medical treatment, even who she could spend time with. Fans flooded the streets outside the courthouse. Hashtag Free Britney had won. Justice, it seemed, had finally been served. But freedom isn't a cure. And what came after the celebration is a story that didn't get nearly enough attention. Because here's what the last 5 years actually looked like in 2023. Britney released her memoir, The Woman in Me. It became an instant bestseller. People bought it in the millions, devoured every painful detail, cried over what she'd been through. And then, quietly, the conversation moved on. The book tour wrapped. The interviews ended. And Britney went back to being alone in her house, posting dance videos at midnight. Her marriage to Sam Asghari, the relationship she'd held onto like a lifeline through the final years of the conservatorship, collapsed in 2023. He filed for divorce after just over a year off marriage, citing irreconcilable differences. Reports at the time suggested the relationship had become volatile. Another anchor, gone, then came the music catalog sale. Britney signed a deal with Primary Wave, handing over her song catalog, a collection worth an estimated $200 million, along with an unclear number of additional rights. For an artist, your music is your legacy. Selling, it doesn't just mean giving up royalties. It means giving up ownership of the thing you built your entire life around. And she did it quietly, with barely a headline that in January of this year she posted, and then deleted, a message telling the world she would never perform in the U.S. again. No tour. No residency. No comeback. Just a vague reference to extremely sensitive reasons, and a fragile hope of one day performing abroad with her son. Her last album came out in 2016. Her last U.S. performance was in 2018. And in the years between then and now, the silence has been almost total. Strip it all back and what you're left with is this: a woman who lost her structure, lost her marriage, sold her legacy, stepped away from her career, and spent 5 years communicating with the world almost exclusively through a social media account that no longer exists. And now a DUI, a blood draw, a court date in May, and a family scrambling to put together a plan they're admitting should have existed long ago. Which leaves one question still hanging in the air. Where does Britney Spears go from here? So here we are, March 2026. And the world is once again holding its breath over Britney Spears. The immediate logistics are straightforward enough. She has a court date on May 4th. Her legal team will show up, the toxicology results from her blood draw will be entered into evidence, and a judge will decide what comes next. If the results come back clean for alcohol but show something else in her system, the charges could shift entirely. If they confirm a high BAC, she's looking at standard first offense DUI consequences, fines, possible license suspension, mandatory classes, maybe probation. Nothing that ends a person's life on paper, but this was never really about the legal outcome. Her representative confirmed that her sons, Sean Preston and Jaden, are being brought in. 2 young men, barely out of their teenage years, now being called upon to help stabilize their mother. Think about that for a second. These are kids who grew up watching their parents' relationship play out in tabloids, who spent years navigating a complicated custody arrangement, and who are now being asked to be part of an emergency intervention for the woman who brought them into the world. That's an enormous weight to place on anyone, let alone 2 young men still figuring out their own lives. The family is also reportedly working on what the statement called a wellness plan. A structured roadmap to get Britney the support she needs. And look, if that's real, if it's genuine, and if the right people are actually involved, that's a good thing. That's the best possible outcome here. But fans have heard versions of this before. They've watched people claim to have Britney's best interests at heart for over 2 decades now. They've seen plans fall apart, relationships collapse, and promises quietly evaporate. So forgive them for being cautiously skeptical this time around. Forgive them for needing to see action instead of statements. Because here's the uncomfortable truth sitting at the center of all of this. The hashtag Free Britney movement was one of the most powerful fan-driven campaigns in modern pop culture history. Millions of people rallied behind her. They showed up outside courthouses, They pressured lawyers and legislators. They made enough noise that the entire world paid attention. And it worked. The conservatorship ended. She was free. But freedom without a safety net isn't liberation. It's just a different kind of dangerous. And somewhere between the celebration and the silence, the system that was supposed to support her after the conservatorship ended simply didn't materialize. The structure came down and nothing was built in its place. Nobody knows what Wednesday night looked like from the inside. Nobody knows what was going through her mind as she got behind that wheel. And speculation doesn't help anyone right now. What we do know is this: Britney Spears is 43 years old. She has 2 sons who love her. She has fans all over the world who never stop caring. And somewhere underneath all the headlines, the deleted posts, the court dates, and the statements, there is still a person who deserves a real chance at being okay. The world fought hard to free Britney once. The question now is whether anyone is willing to fight just as hard to actually help her heal. Because a court date in May is not a plan. And a statement from a representative is not Ollie Feline. She needs more than that. She always did.